We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
What's going on, everybody? I know it doesn't look like I'm looking at you. I just got back from Ecuador, so my studio is kind of a little discombobulated right now, but my name's John. I'm the host of the 21 CD podcast. It's great to be here with all of you. My little shindig with Flat Earth Dave was definitely one of the most interesting episodes that I've ever done, so it's a pleasure to be here and talk about it again.
All right, I counted at least 30 lies that he told you.
You know, I counted at least 30 times that I wasn't able to get a word in edgewise. So
he does like to talk. He's got his script down. That's a fact. Now, just a quick question: did you download his app?
Of course not. No.
Good. Do you know about the app? The fact that it just leaks data. Anyone using that app, I know where they live.
Oh,
we've got a backdoor into the app because he doesn't know how to do security, even though he's been told about it. And our white hat hackers, tried to get him to sort it. But I know where Dave lives. I know where everyone that uses that app, if they log onto it, I can find their exact address, their passwords. He stores the passwords for it in plain text, for goodness sake. It's like there is zero security. And he's been told about this, and he does not get it fixed.
That's his idea of dating, huh? Because he made sure to stress the dating. Yes, anybody can appear at your doorstep and date you at any given time.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of how that would work. And the worst thing is that he has been told. He's been. Our white hat hackers went to him first before they told everyone. They were like, you've got these issues with your app. You should get this sorted. And he didn't care. He's not done anything to fix it. He just adds more features that allows it to leak more data. And it's awful. He also lies about the amount of people on it. There's not that many people. It's just all those dots he showed you. That's just every instance of it being opened on a different account, not different people that have the app. He is a pathological liar.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I had him on in the first place. I basically just set up a poll for all of my own followers, and I was like, who do you guys think should be on the show? And he ended up being one of the people who responded first, and so he got on the show first. But
he likes to shill his app. I mean, have you seen any of the other podcasts he's on? Because they're all the same. He has his script, he has his app, he just goes on there to shill his app. He didn't go to Antarctica because he knew his app would then be defunct and he'd have no money.
There you go.
I mean, his app even uses the Haversine formula, like in all its calculations, for goodness sake. The clock thing on the front, that doesn't work. That doesn't show the correct position of the sun. We've told him all this.
When I tried to ask him why he uses, GPS and all this kind of stuff on his app, and he kind of wasn't really able to answer that for me. That's when it got really confusing.
Yeah,
considering satellites don't exist or whatever.
Yeah. The Starlink thing, he just. Like, he shows you that plane and saying, oh, why does it go up to the tower? And that, the question that anyone should ask him is, why do planes have satellite receivers on the top and not the bottom, All right. So anyway, I'm Craig, by the way. You can either refer to me as Craig or FTFE or Flight or Oi, you dumbass with the big nose, whatever you like.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm ready to start whenever you are. I know it was supposed to be 22:30, but I'm here anyway. So
no, yeah, we're good. We're here. We're going. We're moving. Let's get her going.
Right, cool. Yeah. So how's this going to work? Have you got questions to ask me, or do you just want me to go through the things that I know Dave lied to you about? Because I've literally over the last couple of hours watched the video of you and him and made a bunch of notes of the lies that he told you. So however you want to do it. If you've got questions, it's your podcast, so you run it how you like.
Well, I've never been on a streamathon before, so this is new territory for me. But I assume that it'll work best if you just dissect this thing, and when I've got questions, I'll ask them. Because you've done your homework, obviously. You know what you're talking about. And you've probably watched that episode more recently than I have. To be honest,
literally just now. I started the stream like 2 hours ago, and I thought, well, I'm seeing you at 10:30. I'll just literally, so I'm fresh with it, go through the video before I see you. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just you go through it, and when you see those hot points that you want to bring up, let me know, or just start talking about them, and we'll get them going.
All right. You got an intro and stuff to do. You want to do that first, or like to record?
No, sir. I'm an easy guy.
Cool. All right. No worries. So anyway, yeah. Thanks for agreeing to have me on. Myself and my assistant Emily, who was the one that emailed you, we're doing a thing right now where every podcast that Dave's been on, I'm trying to get on myself to let their audience know that Dave lied to you, and mainly to let, if anyone in the audience has downloaded Dave's app, uninstall it immediately. Please, if any of the people that watch this channel regularly have downloaded and installed and logged on to Dave's app, uninstall it immediately. And if you do the thing where you use the same password for everything, because I know a lot of people do, change your passwords immediately. Because we can just get your password. The passwords are not encrypted, which blows my mind, because it's a Google and Apple rule, right? The passwords on the account for the apps that they have should be encrypted. And his aren't. His are stored in plain text. So I don't even understand how Google and Apple still have his app up. But yeah, so there was a couple of things that you said at the beginning that I just wanted to go over. And this isn't me having a go at you, but it's common misconceptions about science. I've got a degree in physics. I've got a degree in nuclear engineering. I am an engineer. I've built wind farms. And I hear a lot of people that maybe are not into science saying things which are misconceptions. Like at the beginning of the stream with Dave, you said that there's a lot of things in science that are theories rather than laws. And I think the problem is that there's a difference between a theory and a scientific theory. In science, a theory is the highest accolade you can give something. The theory contains the laws. And Dave, during the stream, mentioned how gravity is a theory, but electrostatics isn't a theory. Well, that's not... Gravity isn't a theory. There's the theory of gravity. The same way there's the theory of electrostatics and the electrical theory. The same way that there's music theory. That doesn't mean that music is a theory. It just contains all of the knowledge that we have about that subject. And if you're saying things like, well, gravity is just a theory, not a law, then you have to apply that to things like music and driving as well. Because in Britain, we take a driving theory test. Does that mean that driving is a theory? No, it's just showing that we understand all the knowledge around driving that we had take before we then take the practical test. So it's just something that you said at the beginning of your stream that I feel needs to be corrected for people that aren't into science like myself. A theory in science is not the same as just a theory in the colloquial sense. It's not a guess. When you say about a theory in science, it means that it's been tested to the highest degree. There is laws, there is equations, there is experiments, and they're all part of the theory of this thing. Gravity isn't a theory. There is the theory of gravitation, which contains everything that we know about gravity. And it's the same with electrostatics, with electronics, with anything in science. There's the theory of it, which just explains what it is. Do you have any questions about that?
Well, do you think all theories within science then are, that's just it? It's a done deal, or can they be disproven?
Anything can be disproven. And that's the great thing about science. Nothing is set, right? We never say that we have all of the answers or that science is finished, because if a better explanation comes along, then we'll change what we understand. And we'll update the theory. We'll update the everything. Like Newton's law of gravitation has never been proven to be incorrect, but science doesn't say that you can't try and show that it's incorrect. That's what, when you do an experiment in science, you're not trying to prove something. There's no such thing as scientific proof, because science understands that there can be a better explanation that comes along. It's just the best explanation that we have at the moment. The idea of science and doing experiments is to try and disprove what someone has said. So someone comes up with a new hypothesis and they say, well, here's all the evidence for it, right? The entire scientific community, peer review, do their best to rip that apart. They will do the same experiment. They will change it slightly. They will do everything they can to try and disprove what that person has said. And if no one's able to disprove it, if there's no way to disprove what someone has said, we don't say it's proven, but we say, well, we can't disprove that. And, we can then say, well, here's a law that can't be disproven. And, and then we've got a theory that contains all of the information that we've just discovered. But theories can always be updated with new information that we discover.
Sure.
Right?
Okay, so for my followers, let's just set up a base here. Are you a Christian? Are you a non-believer?
No,
Are
I am an
you
atheist, 100%
okay?
atheist. Although,
Okay,
to be completely clear, I don't hold the position that I could disprove God because I think that's
sure.
stupid. That's something that is outside of science, right? Someone says to me, "What's outside the universe?" I don't know. That's not something that science ever, that's outside of science. Like science deals in the natural world, which means anything of physical matter or energy. God, supernatural, right? I
Hmm.
don't personally believe in a God, and I've got my own reasons for that. But I would never be able to disprove a God. I could never say to someone, "I've got proof that God isn't real," because that's an unrealistic and frankly, wrong thing to say. I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. I believe science can explain the world. But if people have a belief in God, then that's a personal thing. And generally, I've got no issue with it. I have an issue with like Christian fundamentalists that, you know, try and push it hard and things like that. And I don't like it when people knock on my door and say, "You should believe in the word of Christ." I then say, "Well, here's some science or something." But, I am an atheist. But if you believe in God and that's a personal relationship that you've got, that's fine. A lot of my good friends are Christians. I even went to one of my best friends when I grew up in the band that I was in. His dad ran a church, which I played guitar in the band. But I was asked to leave Sunday school as a child though because I asked too many questions. So
I was asked to leave Sunday school because I told somebody good luck before a kickball game. So I totally understand. There's a lot of I'm in the process of weeding fundamentalists out of my own group right now. So I totally get it. But thank you. Yep. Carry on.
right. So one of the first things that Dave started talking to you about was gravity,
Hmm.
right? And say like he talked about he said to you, well, which gravity do you believe in, Einstein or Newton? Do you know what he was talking about with that?
No, he completely confused me with that question, and I just figured must have been stupid. So.
It is pretty stupid, right? So this is what flat earthers do when they try and talk about gravity, is they try and confuse the matter. In the 1600s, Newton came up with his law of gravitation, right? Where he witnessed something happening and he realized that, well, the planets and that orbit us, and there was a ratio that he could calculate, and he came up with the law of universal gravitational attraction, right? Fg equals g m1 m2 over r squared, which says that the product of atomic masses, that gravity is proportional to the product of atomic masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. And that works. That's for anything on a local scale, traveling at a normal speed, even for our solar system, in the majority, that works perfectly. Engineers use that formula to calculate the force needed on bridges, right? That is Newton's gravity, right? And it works. But it's not 100% accurate because Newton assumed that gravity traveled instantly. It doesn't. There's a universal speed limit to the universe, which is the speed of light. When Einstein came along with the theory of relativity, he explained that, well, gravity isn't just a mass attracting mass, and it's limited by the speed of light. Gravity is actually a warping of space-time. Like imagine a trampoline and a big bowling ball on it, right? It'll bend down that trampoline, and you put a marble near it, and it'll go around, right? So,
Hmm.
but it makes the smaller mass go towards the bigger mass, and it's the speed of light is the limit of it. So there's a lot more equations involved, and he's got his tensor equations, which describes it a lot more accurately. And if you're using extremely massive things like black holes and things going really fast, then you would need to use Einstein's tensor equations because it's a lot more accurate than Newton, right? Even though Newton's fine on a local level for us, for things traveling close to the speed of light or extremely massive things, it's not quite accurate enough. But they're basically the same thing. One, you can even derive Newton's law from Einstein's equations. So what Dave and other flat earthers do is they try and go, oh, well, it used to be this, but then they decided it was this. And they, which one do you want it to be, to try and confuse the matter? But it's just the same as, you've got a PS4 and that was superseded by the PS5, right? One's a lot better than the other, but both can still play Call of Duty. One's got better graphics, might be connected quicker, but they both still do the job. One not as well as the other. And it's just that. It's just a more accurate, better way to describe gravity. We discovered more about it. And Newton's law is a law because it works. And like I said, engineers, if you're building a bridge, they don't use Einstein because there's no need. It's far too complicated. They use Newton
For sure.
because it works, and unless it's bad construction, you don't have bridges just collapsing everywhere. So Newton's law for the force of gravity that you need to take into account clearly works. So this is
tools for different purposes, you could
yeah,
say.
exactly. If we were trying to figure out how to travel near the speed of light and what would happen to us and things like that, then we would Einstein. We wouldn't use Newton because it wouldn't be accurate enough. But we don't do that here on Earth. We travel at very slow speeds, universally speaking. Even if you're in a plane going 700 miles an hour, that's still pretty damn slow compared to the universe. So Newton works perfectly. But Dave and other flat earthers like to try and confuse the matter and be like, which one do you like, Newton or Einstein, as though it's some kind of gotcha, when it's just a complete misunderstanding of anything around gravity.
Right, and he uses these graphs too, and all these graphics and everything like this to try to explain these things. But to be honest, I just couldn't help but feel like most of these were just made to further the agenda. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't necessarily proving anything to me. If anything, they were confusing me more because it was like a bunch of Pixar graphics that just seemed to mold to what he was trying to say.
Yeah, and if you've watched his streams enough, like I have, I've watched far too much Dave Weiss in my time. You see the lies that he puts in the graphics. He didn't use a lot of the ones which are blatant lies on you, more just kind of misconceptions. But he does this thing where he'll like try and say how things move away, and that makes it go behind a horizon, and they hold his hand and then move something down behind his hand, saying, "Oh, it's just moving away." It's a very well constructed and well rehearsed set of lies that if you have no discernment, you can quite easily fall into. So
I think my favorite one was the one where he had the balloon tied to the power plug-in or something, and I could literally see him pulling up on the screen, and he was acting like it was some kind of gravity or something like this. I don't even remember what he was trying to explain.
Well,
and
what he was doing... Sorry, go on.
No, I just saw it visually. I could see that the experiment was not doing what he wanted it to do.
I mean, what he's trying to show is that you can use electrostatics to make things float. And you know what? You can. If you rub a balloon on your head, you can make it like stick to stuff, right? And
right.
He will use that as to say, well, gravity's not real. I can defy gravity. Look at me. It's clearly electrostatics. I turn off and it goes back down. But he doesn't understand the concept of there being more than one force at a time. Yeah, you can use electrostatics to overcome the force of gravity, but then you turn off that and it goes back down because gravity's there. And that's what he was trying to say, that, electrostatics isn't a theory. Except I took electrical theory in university in my engineering degree. I know that there's a theory of electrostatics and electromagnetism. Just like there's a theory of gravity. But he will just lie to people and say, well, gravity's a theory, but electrostatics isn't. Because he's I don't even know if he is a flat earther, right?
I had that question myself. The more I listened to him talk, the more I was like, I wonder if he actually believes this or if he's just already too deep in it. And that's why I asked him the question, is there anything that would change your mind? And he essentially said, no, but yes, but no. And I was just kind of like, I really don't know if this man even believes what he's saying to me right now.
That's the reason he didn't go to Antarctica. Because he, for his, all up until that point, until the final experiment happened, he always said that if there's a 24-hour sun, then the Earth's a globe. Mm-hmm. But then they went and saw, he knew when he was invited, oh shit, I'm going to go there and see a 24-hour sun. So he couldn't go. So he had to start calling people, demon. I was invited to that. I was supposed to go to Antarctica, but I've got a really duff leg and I couldn't. So I turned it down because I didn't want to be a bird. I would need help getting around, and I didn't want people to be focusing on me rather than what they were doing there, right? I'm gutted I didn't go. I could have gone. And the fact that he turned down a free trip to Antarctica because he was scared.
Something that most of us would jump on at the earliest opportunity.
I mean, I when Will emailed me and he was like, you want to come to Antarctica? I sat with my wife for a while. I'm like, I want to go. I want to do it. Right. But I just know the other people that are going to go there, they're going to have to be helping me, and I didn't want to be selfish, even though when they came back, they're like, it would have been fine. right? Toon and McKeegan and Jeranism, they were like, it wouldn't have been an issue. There was rides to places. There wasn't much walking involved. I would have probably been okay, but I didn't want to spoil it for anyone else. So I didn't go. But that's a legitimate reason. He had no reason to go to say no other than Will Duffy's clearly a demon.
Right.
Because if he went and he saw the 24-hour sun, his app is now bunk because his app uses the AE map, which says that there can never be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. So if he'd gone and saw the 24-hour sun, even if he tried to come up with some excuse as to why it's still flat Earth, his app is done. And he knew that.
Right.
I mean, who turns down a trip to Antarctica when you're perfectly capable of going, right?
Well, and that's the thing about conspiracy theorists, though. Once you find the circle of conspiracy theorists, pardon the pun, that you can like go ahead and manipulate, and that becomes your customer base, then once you get rid of that, you lose your your customer base. Well, you can't, if you're not going to shill for them anymore, then they're not going to dish out money for you.
Yeah, he's in too deep. He can never say, the amount of times that I've said that I would debate him, and we've had hosts arranged, but he won't speak to me because I'm a demon. Do you know how I spoke to Dave? Right? To speak to Dave, my assistant spent months making a fake podcast called the Conspiracast. They even got guests on to have fake shows. So that he would come on.
I like the way you move. I like your infiltration techniques.
So we eventually got him on, and then myself and MC Toon, who also went to Antarctica, joined, but with our cameras off using voice changers, and spent an hour actually having a conversation with Dave and debunking him live until we turned on our cameras at the end and he ran away. He won't speak to us because even though MC Toon's a Christian and Will Duffy's a Christian, they're demons. But I'm a demon because I'm an atheist,
Hey, you got to pick your demons.
So, this is just what Dave does. He has his grift, and he's got it very, very well down. He's done it hundreds, maybe thousands of times. He's got his his thing set up so all that appears, and he's got all his talking points, and he knows them so well that he can sound confident. And like you saw, he didn't give you a chance to speak, really.
No, and it was obvious that the script was well in play because anytime I tried to, because there were multiple times throughout the show that I tried to get him off his script, and I tried to ask sort of bizarre questions that maybe he hasn't been asked before, and those always made him very uncomfortable, and he had to immediately come back to the script.
Yeah. If anyone's watching this, it might be a good idea if you haven't to watch the Dave Weiss interview. Obviously, get this man some views. So go and watch the interview that's on the channel so that you understand more of what I'm going through, because there is a lot of points that he brought up that I'd like to go through. Like, he tried talking to you about the 3-body problem. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yep.
Right. So he's got the 3 dots up there, exactly the same size, and he's like, well, the 3-body problem, we can't ever calculate anything that's with 3 bodies. And that's just a complete and utter lie.
He completely misunderstood the 3-body problem.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that, like, he wanted it to fit his narrative so bad, but even while he was, and I'm relatively scientifically stupid compared to somebody like yourself, and even I understood that you don't really grasp the 3-body problem.
No. So when he's like, the 3-body problem's never been solved, it's just untrue. There's no general single-use formula that gives the exact future positions of 3 bodies for every possible starting arrangement, all right? Mm-hmm. For 2 bodies, you can write down an equation for the orbit and calculate the position at any time. Nice, clean. But for 3 bodies, each object constantly changes the motion of the other 2, and the equations become coupled and non-linear. But that doesn't mean we haven't solved it. I mean, we've got ways of solving it. We can calculate numerical ways, calculate the forces involved. We can analytically solve it by bit. And there's many different ways of actually doing it. That you can use the Lagrange way of solving it. There's countless ways of solving the 3-body problem with way more than 3 bodies, right? And it's just a lie that he will say so confidently that people that don't understand anything about it will go, oh yeah, well, why is it called the 3-body problem then? How do we know what's going on in this? How can we calculate the position of asteroids and planets if there's more than 2? because he's just lying about it. We've got Lagrange solutions, Euler solutions. You can, if a satellite is one of the bodies, you can just ignore that because its gravity is so small compared to the others, and that's called the restricted three-body problem. There's so many different ways to actually solve. It's been done for decades, and he acts like it's you get the best supercomputer ever, and we can't solve it. Yeah, there's no single-use formula, but there is many other ways of doing it, and it's just one of the lies that he confidently spews that people might not check up on if you're not scientifically inclined.
Exactly. And even if you use those words, like those scientific words that maybe your general layman wouldn't understand, it makes him sound like he does know what he's talking about. And that's one of his skills as a manipulator that I've noticed. I'm not here to talk smack about anybody, but I was an interrogator in the U.S. Army, and my job was to basically read people. And one of the first things first things that I noticed was that he uses language and lingo that would make somebody else feel uncomfortable if they didn't have, as you said before, discernment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, he preys on the gullible and he preys on the uneducated, right? No one that is a fan of Dave Weiss has a physics degree. I mean, you can't be a flat earther if you've studied physics. They're completely incompatible, right? Physics shows that the Earth is a globe. Frankly, to me, the world screams that it's a globe. I've measured the shape and the rotation of the Earth myself. So I'm not just believing what people say. I did my physics degree. I was in the Royal Navy. I had to calculate fuel consumption, and it's all based on a globe. All my pilot friends know that it's a globe, and when they plan their routes, it's based on a globe. I've got PhD friends that use satellites and gravity to find minerals and oil underground as their job. I've got a professor friend, Professor Phil Bell, who literally put something on the moon. He was involved in the Indian Chandrayaan landing. So it's like every scientist and engineer in the world is wrong, or Dave Weiss is wrong. These are the choices.
Well, you're not stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, well, my friend MC Toon, who is also a flat Earth debunker, has a T-shirt that says, "It's not stupid. Dave Weiss is stupid." That's the much better one. When he was talking about that experiment with the electrostatics, and he's like, "Well, we manipulate the independent variables, and right, yeah, so you change the voltage or the ampage, and it gives a different force." And he's like, "You can't do that with gravity, but you can." To manipulate the variables in gravity, you just change the mass or the distance. And that's what the Cavendish experiment is about. Do you know what the Cavendish experiment is?
I don't.
Imagine a wire with a bar on it, right? Hanging like that. And on the end of the bar, you've got a mass there and a mass there. You let it rest for ages so that it's just sitting perfect. And then you put two larger masses either side. And it puts torque on the string because the mass is now attracted to each other. It's such a small force that it has to be done very, very precisely. It was first done by Lord Cavendish a couple of hundred years ago, but it's repeated by school children now to show that there's a gravitational attraction. And you can do it with any material, and you get the same result. It doesn't matter. Electrostatics doesn't matter, because if it was electrostatics, it would be different depending on the material. But no matter the material, the masses is what decides how that attraction works and the distance between them. So we can manipulate gravity in the same way that he manipulated his, thing going up because of electrostatics. And he just lies that you can't do this in gravity. And then he says electrostatics is 10 to the 36 times stronger than gravity. That's true at the subatomic level. But if I get this mug and this cup, they're not attracted to each other 10 to the 36 times stronger with electrostatics because they're on a macro scale. Gravity is really, really weak, but electrostatics at this level is billions of times weaker. Yeah, sure. If you're talking about at the atomic level, with the strong electrical forces at that level, yeah, it's stronger. That's what holds atoms together. But when anything, even like individual atoms, it's not the electrostatic forces that decides how they work. It's the gravitational attraction, He slips in little bits of truth. Like this 10 to the 36 times. And then he says, this 36 with 10 zeros, blah, blah, blah. But it's a way to, again, lie and sound smart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, any questions about any of that? I don't want to do the
No,
same
just
as
keep
Dave
on
and just
rolling.
bocart it, you know.
The way that when I have people on my show anyway, the way I go, I let them cook because I always think it's more interesting if the person is able to get their points across aggressively. So I don't like to interrupt too much. So keep on
Well,
cooking.
any questions that you've got at any time, please feel free to interrupt me. And I
will, yeah.
really don't mind. Okay, so the next lie that he told, without even a beat, he told you that they taught flat Earth in schools in America in the 1900s. That's just a complete and utter lie. That comes from
Right.
a newspaper article of a flat earther from the early 1900s that tried to sue governments and states in America because they weren't teaching flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the newspaper article talks about teaching flat Earth in schools, but it's in it's in the context of this crazy flat earther trying to force flat Earth into schools when the schools have been teaching that the Earth's a globe for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know? And
Yeah.
it's, again,
That
it's just,
I went and I had to look that up afterwards because I was like, really? Are you telling me the truth here?
well, I'm sure you found that what we all know then, that it's a
Yeah.
complete fabrication.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he'll have a screen on his app. He's got a screenshot of them talking about teaching flat Earth in schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't show the whole article because, of course, he can't show the whole article because it debunks what he says. But all anyone has to do is just look up and read the article themselves, and you're like, oh right, so no, they weren't teaching it. This guy wanted them to teach it. Now there was a place in America called Zion, which was a flat Earth city as such. It was a bunch of flat earthers that got together and they did teach flat Earth, but it went away very quickly because obviously it's not true. But it's just, again, what Dave does. He says these lies so confidently, and this is why
Sounds like Utah.
yeah. He spends his every day going on podcast after podcast after podcast, and he targets podcasts like yours where you talk about some out there stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your audience are probably quite susceptible to hearing alternative ideas, right?
Yep.
You talk about simulation theory and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
any audience that's into that is maybe not going to be completely on board with the mainstream. So then
Right.
he thinks, well, there's an in for me with my flat Earth and a chance for me to sell my app. So
Yeah, it's very safe to say that my audience is by no means in with the mainstream.
yeah,
I tackle a lot of those topics that are like, well, this is just another topic. You don't have to believe it, but is it? Let's just talk about it for entertainment's sake. And unfortunately, yeah, a lot of those topics come with people who are very die-hard. But in the case of Flat Earth Dave, surprisingly, there were very few people in my fan base who agreed with him.
oh, I'm glad to hear that.
It was a breath of fresh air. I'm not gonna lie.
It's funny. This is the second podcast that I've got on recently after Dave, and it's kind of the same. They're like, yeah, I don't really like talking to him. So
Yeah, it was an uncomfortable experience, mainly because I just didn't feel like I literally could have. I didn't have to be there. You know what I mean? He could have just been speaking to a wall, and
Yeah.
that's one of the issues that I had with him. That just made me realize that he's a fraud.
yeah, he was using you, and
Yeah.
and I know this is what you do. You do podcasts and you get guests on. So it's you didn't do anything wrong. You got a guest on that you thought would be an interesting conversation, but he uses that as an in, and it's all just to sell his app. That's it.
course.
That's what he does. And like I said, and if you did download the app, anyone watching, please uninstall it, change your passwords, because I can just find out where you live, and you don't want me turning up at your house. All right, I'll eat all your cookies.
Right.
So the next lie he told you was when he was talking about Eratosthenes and the experiment with the sun rays and the sticks, in Syene and that, right?
Right.
And the first thing he said was, well, Eratosthenes was trying to prove that it was a globe. Well, he wasn't. Eratosthenes knew the Earth was a globe. Eratosthenes was just trying to measure the radius, right? There was no doubt in Eratosthenes' mind, or the majority of the Greeks and everything around there, that the Earth was a globe. They for centuries they observed ships disappearing hull first and stuff. They knew the Earth was round. They didn't know how big it was because they hadn't been everywhere. And Eratosthenes assumed the sun was quite far away. Didn't know exactly how far away, but far enough away that the sunlight came in parallel, which it does. That's another lie that he says, that corpuscular rays show that the Earth, the sun's. But in the same way, does a train track show that the train is local because they're parallel, yet they do that? You know, it's just literally perspective.
Yeah.
Crepuscular rays are parallel.
Right.
And so Eratosthenes was just trying to measure the radius. And Dave said that, well, you can get the same result if you just have two things on a flat Earth. And you know what? He's right. With just 2 points of data, you could kind of get the same result on flat with a globe. But the Eratosthenes experiment has been repeated hundreds of times throughout history with multiple points. My friend Simon Dan, you might have heard of him, he's got quite a big YouTube channel, nearly 600,000. He organized probably one of the world's biggest Eratosthenes experiments. And he had like a couple of thousand people take their own measurements of the angle of the sun at a particular time. And that would have been completely impossible if the Earth was flat, to put all that data together and get the Earth being a globe. Another one of my friends, Slice Barcane, did the same thing with not quite as many people, but maybe 6-7 years ago, and even did the graphics to show that, well, with all these angles, here's where it directs towards the sun. And then he put it onto a flat Earth, and if you take all the data points on a flat Earth, it means the sun's in multiple places at the same time, which wouldn't be possible. So again, it's half.
Well, isn't his argument for that something like there's multiple suns or something?
Yeah. Of course, there has to be, right? And it's not necessarily there's multiple suns. It's that we all see the sun in an apparent position because there's this magical dome firmament that is somehow a hologram at the same time, and the sun appears on the firmament, even though the sun's outside the firmament. And then he says you wouldn't be able to triangulate the position of the sun, even though you would, because the angles would still be the same. It's all, everything he says is a well-rehearsed lie. Oh, Eratosthenes was trying to prove the Earth was a globe. No, he wasn't. He knew it was. He was just measuring the radius. And these things aren't even hard to check. But yeah, sun rays, they are parallel. There's a good video that I like to use. I can't really play it right now, but if any, I'll send you the link, and you can maybe put it in the description. And it's of a guy that's in my community, and he's got a drone looking at some posts with shadows. And when the drone's on the floor, the shadows from the posts look like they're diverging out. But as the drone raises up and looks down, you can see the shadows are all absolutely parallel, because the rays of sun, the rays from the sun are all parallel. Therefore, the shadows are parallel. And yeah, if you want to put that, I will send that to you, or get my assistant to, and you can put that in the description. But the biggest debunk to that is just train tracks. Train tracks are parallel, and they have to be parallel as the train falls off. But when you look at train tracks going into distance, what do? They do that. Does that mean that you can calculate the distance of where they touch at the end? No, they don't. They're parallel, but perspective makes them look like they do that.
Right.
And it's ironic because flat earthers like to use perspective as saying we don't understand things, when they use perspective and clearly don't understand anything.
Well, it's the oldest trick in the magician's book.
Yeah.
It's just perspective, literally.
Yeah. Any questions about any of that?
No, carry on.
Okay. He keeps claiming that we don't know the distance to the sun. That's one of his biggest things. Oh, they just say it's 93 million miles away. We don't know the distance. We've known the distance for a long time. And if we're going to give a definite, well, when did we definitely know it? In 1959, we bounced radar off of the outer chronosphere of the sun. And it took 1,000 seconds to get a return signal. 1,000 seconds, traveling at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, means that the sun is 93 million miles away. And then every experiment since then shows that it's 93 million miles away. I've measured the distance to the sun myself using the transit of Mercury across the sun, with me and a friend in another location, being able to triangulate, use our position, do a basic bit of trigonometry, and literally we got 93 million miles. We've sent probes to the sun, NASA's Parker Solar Probe, which is actually in the sun's chronosphere at the moment. And it just happens to be 93 million miles. So it's just another lie that Dave says. We don't know the distance to the sun. It's just a guess. And they do this thing where he says that...
Do you know why he says that? Like, what is his logic behind that lie? Do you know? Like, has he ever explained how we don't know?
Because he wants the sun to be local. He doesn't know. He quite clearly says he doesn't know what the sun is or exactly where it is. But it can't be 93 million miles away. because that would mean the Earth's a
I
globe
think
in
I
space.
actually asked him what the sun was, and he said it's like consciousness. Or
Yeah, he said
something
it's
like
God's
that.
consciousness. He doesn't know, but he thinks it might be God's consciousness, which is batshit crazy, to be fair.
Yeah, that was another one of those moments where I was just kind of blown away by the lengths that he would go to make his point.
Yeah. So the distance to the sun is not some mystery. It's something that science has tested. It's something that amateurs can. It's something school kids do when there's transits of Venus or Mercury. You know, you get together and you calculate the distance to the sun. You know, and the fact that we know that radar bounces off of things. So when we point the radar at the sun and we get a return signal, yet we don't point it at the sun and we don't get a return signal, that kind of tells you something. It's hitting something and it's taking 1,000 seconds. Basic bit of maths. 93 million miles away, right? Same as, that's how, you were in the military, so you obviously know how radar works.
Right.
It sends out signal. That's
it
why
has
there's
to bounce off of something and come back.
Yeah, that's why there's a radar horizon, right? You can't see outside that radar horizon because that's the curve of the Earth.
So either the sun is not a consciousness or a consciousness has mass.
It's one of the two, right? So yeah, that's the lies he tells about the sun. So he talks about winter and summer a lot. And he'd bring up his app and he'd say, well, in the north when it's summer, the sun's around the outside. But, in the middle, when it's the summer for the south, it's around the outside. But let's think of the implications of that, right? That would mean if you were in the north, which is the middle of his map, and it's winter for you, so the sun is going around the southern bit, then the sun would be smaller for you in the winter than it is in the summer. But
Correct.
The sun is the same size all of the time. Throughout the day, throughout the year, the sun's angular size, it changes by the tiniest amount. The Earth's orbit around the Earth isn't completely spherical. It's slightly elliptical. So there's a slight bit where you're further away and a bit where you're closer, but it's nearly spherical. So the angular size changes by like 0.03% throughout the year. But if the Earth was flat, and it was going around the inside and then the outside, then throughout the year, the size would change. But throughout the day, it would be even worse. Because if the sun's going right over you, it's there, it's big. But then as it goes, the thousands of miles away, its angular size would change dramatically throughout the day. If it's just there, if it's local, just above you, and it's going away, then it should get smaller and smaller and smaller. But it doesn't. Now, if you point a camera at the sun and you don't put any filter on it, it might look like it's doing that as it goes towards the horizon because that's glare. Stick an actual proper solar filter on it and you see that the sun's angular size stays exactly the same throughout the entire day, which is, if the Earth is flat and that's impossible. It literally couldn't help if the sun was small and local. So yeah, that's an easily debunked lie. And he's like, well, that's why winter happens, because it's when it's summer for Australia, the sun's around the outside, so we're further away from it. And do you know why the seasons happen?
Well, because of gravity, right?
Well,
the tides and the
seasons happen because of the tilt of the Earth, right? So when it's summer for the northern hemisphere, the Earth's, if this is the sun and this is the Earth, right, we're tilted like this. So you've got northern hemisphere up here. So in the summer for the northern hemisphere, it's tilted towards the sun. In the winter, it's tilted away, and now the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. That means that the sun's energy is spread over a larger distance for whichever part is the winter because it's tilted away. So even though the same amount of energy is coming from every bit of the sun, because the Earth has a tilt and rotates, when it's the winter, the bit that's tilting away has to have that same energy spread over a larger distance, which means it's colder.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
That's the reason for the seasons. It's because the Earth is tilted.
I spent a lot of time down in South America and in Ecuador, literally the equator, and so I don't get a lot of seasonal changes and whatnot like that. I when he was trying to describe that to me, I was just kind of like, this sounds like your theory is different based on where you are throughout the world. Like, it will be different if I'm in, if I'm in Minnesota versus if I'm in Ecuador. It'll be different if I'm in Norway versus if I'm in the Congo. Like, it's all going to be a different, you would have to explain it for each independent place that you are if you're going to use that argument.
Yeah. That's the thing about the flat earth, right? Is that for the globe, there's one model, and it explains everything, every phenomenon that we have, everything in the sky, for seasons, for the sun, for the moon, for the stars. Model explains absolutely every single phenomenon cohesively. For the flat earth, you have to have hundreds of different models to explain every little thing. Exactly. And they all disagree with each other, because if this one is so, then how does that one work? If the earth was flat, you would have a map for a start, but we know the A map isn't right because Australia is not a fucking sausage. And, you would have one cohesive model that explains every phenomenon that we experience in our daily lives, but we don't. There is no model of the flat earth, because they have to make up all these ad hoc explanations for all the different things that they need to try and explain. Why?
And as soon as you start disproving one of those explanations, the whole puzzle starts to fall apart.
Yeah, exactly. My friend MC Toon's in the chat, one of the people that went to Antarctica.
Excellent.
Dave Weiss didn't go because there was going to be demons, except MC Toon is a devout Christian himself.
Sure.
Right, so that covers what he said about why summer happens, and the fact that, nothing he said about the seasons makes sense when you think about it logically, and what would happen to the sun. Also, why is the sun moving in and out? What's causing that? How is it floating? There's no explanation for anything he says.
Well, it's God's consciousness, so it can do whatever it wants.
I once spoke to a flat earther that told me the moon was dug out of the Grand Canyon by giants, melted into quartz while it was still warm. They filled it with helium. That explains craters, because it was bubbles popping. And then put it in the sky to mock us worshipping the sun. The sun was a interdimensional portal to God's light.
Oh.
Flat earthers are not sane people.
Is that why it rings when we hit it with stuff, too?
I guess so. Right. So the next lie that he told you... Oh, the map. The Buddhist map with the continents outside. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. That was a literal fictional story in a newspaper. It wasn't even real.
Yeah, I went and traced that one back, too. It's one of the greatest stories ever told.
Yeah. The map that they use was not even the original that was apparently found. It was a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy passed to someone else, copied and copied and copied, right? So it's like Chinese whispers, right? You're not going to get the same at the end. And then the newspaper story that he talks about was literally a fictional story in that newspaper. But he treats it as though, well, here's these newspapers in the early 1900s showing you that the Earth was flat with these maps.
I think at one point that map was even transcribed 100% from memory, not even from actually seeing it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then the article that he cites literally just used it as the basis of a fictional story.
It's a bit like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you see how easily he lied to you, right? How he's got no problem straight up just bullshitting you. And
oh yeah, I mean, it's not hard to tell anybody who has an open-minded conversation with them. You got to be, if you're going to be open-minded, you have to be both for and against the thing, in my opinion. And so I went in there ready to be convinced if he could, because that's just what I was prepared for. And I came away just feeling even more confused than I started.
Did you feel a bit yucky?
Yeah, I needed a shower afterwards. I felt like I didn't have enough water in my system and needed to go and look at God's consciousness for a while.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with everything you say, and that's cool. People have different opinions, but I'm really glad that you realized that he wasn't being truthful to you.
Yeah.
I think
no. Yeah.
my biggest goal with doing this thing, going around to the podcast that he's been on, is I want people to know that he came on your show and lied to you and your audience. I don't want you to remove that video, right? I want that video to stay there, but I want people to watch this video that you post to know that everything he said was a lie. And I'm sure you get some flat earthers in the comments of this when you post it, like going, oh, that guy's just a shill for NASA or whatever. Yeah, sure, a dude living in Scotland, I'm a complete shill for NASA. Cool, guys, whatever, you know.
Well, I'm a shill for the CIA, so we're all shills for somebody if you talk about anything online.
Right, what else? Oh, clouds floating. Just basic ignorance of physics. He was like, well, clouds are heavier than air. Yeah, but they're less dense. So the buoyant force is the thing. So the air has more mass in a certain volume than the clouds. So the air is pulled down by gravity harder, which creates a force in the opposite direction, pushing the clouds up. And then there's wind up there, which keeps them up. But what happens when the clouds get too heavy because there's too much water? It rains, Dave. You know,
when you started talking about that, I wondered if he had ever been in an airplane or ever been up in climbed a mountain, anything at all.
I know it's crazy, but that is just a really big ignorance of physics. But it's an argument that spreads throughout the flat Earth community. Oh, clouds weigh hundreds and thousands of tons. How are they floating? Well, yeah, but how big do you think cruise ships are? How much do they weigh? Yet they float on water. It's not magic, you know. It's exactly the same concept. Okay. So then he went back to gravity, and he was talking about how in a vacuum gas should just expand. Yes. Therefore, how is the sun, which is, you know, gas, hydrogen, and helium and stuff? How is it there? Well, gas doesn't just expand. If you have gas in a pressurized container and then you open that container, the gas will expand to fill and equalize with the pressure, right?
Yes.
But what it will do on Earth is it will settle into the gradient of pressure that we've got on Earth. So, you know, at sea level is 14.7 psi. As you go up, it gets less and less and less. Why you need oxygen at the top of Everest, right? And that's because of gravity. You know, the gas is more dense where there's more gravity. And the sun is just, there's so much gas that the gravity is pulling it in and pulling it in. And, you know, vacuums don't magically make things expand. If gravity turned off, then, you know, the kinetic energy of the sun, it would probably, you know, separate. But gravity is a thing, whether Dave believes it or not. And the gravity of the sun is so strong that it squishes the hydrogen atoms together and turns them into helium. And then what's left over is released as energy. And, you know, he keeps calling the sun fire. But it's not, you know? Do you see what I mean about how there's nuggets of truth, like the tiniest bits of truth that he puts in there with complete and utter waffle nonsense on top?
Yeah, it's what you do with your dog when you wrap their pills in a bit of sausage or something like that.
Yeah, right? And then he's like, well, why does the sun ignore the moon? Well, it doesn't, Dave. The moon is also orbiting the sun. But at the same time, it's orbiting us. You can have more than one thing happening at the same time. You know, put a merry-go-round on the back of a truck and have it spinning and have that truck going round in a circle. There can be more than one thing going round at the same time. You know, and the entire Earth-Moon system as a gravity well is orbiting the center of our solar system. Right. But, you know...
I can't remember what he said when I asked him about the moon, because I'm pretty sure I asked him what the moon was, and he either said, I don't know what the moon is, or the moon doesn't exist, the moon is a lie, or something like that. I can't remember what his explanation for the moon was.
He kind of just says that the moon is there, but it's just another thing just like the sun. And he didn't do it with you, but he normally starts talking about yin and yang, and how the sun's the yin and the moon's the yang, and they're, you know, one's positive and one's negative, and one, you know, he didn't do it with you, but he tries to say that moonlight is cold, which is always hilarious because he doesn't understand what radiative cooling is. Of course, the Earth heats up during the day and then radiates that heat back into space at night. But if you've got a cover, there's less heat radiating. So, of course, the moon light is going to be colder than the moon shade because there's more radiating. So, but he didn't do that with you. So he says the moon emits its own light and that it's something that causes things to rot or something. It's a bunch of nonsense.
Fair enough.
He didn't do eclipses with you. I wish he had, because he says that when there's an eclipse, it's actually something behind the sun, not the moon going in front of it, which is always hilarious.
Something behind the sun. How would that explain an eclipse?
Yeah, exactly. He puts a torch behind a bed sheet and then passes some of it between the torch and the bed sheet, trying to say that, well, what we see on the bed sheet is effectively the sun on the firmament, and there's something going between the firmament and the sun. I mean, radar would know there was a firmament, right? We'd be able to point radar up and be like, oh, there's a massive bowl above us. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So, all right, here's the good one. He started talking to you about stars.
Wait, well, let me ask a question quick.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
You don't believe there's any type of firmament whatsoever?
No, otherwise we wouldn't be able to point a radar at the sun, unless the firmament's more than 93 million miles away.
Sure, okay.
You know, I mean, is the entire universe inside some kind of bubble? Who knows? Could that be a firmament? You know, I think when the Bible talks about the firmament, it's more talking about the expanse of space. You know, the sky looks flat. It doesn't really talk about like a dome or anything. It means like it's hammered out, and you know, one of Von Braun put on his gravestone Psalms 41, which talks about, you know, the firmament declares the glory of the heavens, etc. But the dude put stuff on the moon, so he obviously interpreted that as firmament meaning expanse, which you know, that's kind of what the translation, when you go back to the word rakia, that's kind of what it means. It means expanse. And you know, the Bible, which he references a lot, is it's poetry mostly. You know, it's stories, it's allegories. It's not supposed to be used as a science book. You know, oh, the earth is like a seal pressed under clay. Well, that's talking about how when you see sunlight coming during the day and the features of the land appear. Like when you put, you know, it's not talking about earth being flat under, you know, it's all just poetry, right? But he will, you know, use the Bible to get the Christians. I don't think he's a Christian in the slightest, but he will quite easily cite things in the Bible to try and get the Christians to believe that the earth is flat.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Do you think there's a firmament? Just out of interest?
There's a lot of like interesting things when it comes to the firmament that I feel like haven't really been like, okay, so like I am a believer. I wouldn't call myself a Christian who follows the doctrine of these churches and whatnot, but there were various programs where we were launching nukes up into the sky, and you know, the whole ozone layer issue and the rockets that can't penetrate and all this kind of stuff, which does form its own category and its own sect of conspiracy theories, some of which are just absolutely diabolical. But it does seem like there is some sort of difficulty around the globe. And I'm, like I said, I'm not a scientist, so I can't prove this with any of my own experimentation. But just based on all of those programs and experiments, it does seem like there is some sort of resistance, at least when it comes to getting out or getting back into
I mean,
right?
it's hard to go to space, and rockets do explode sometimes when they go up. The nukes, that's easily debunked by the fact that there was so many. They did it at 30 miles, they did it at 100 miles, they did it at 200 miles, they did it at 300. Why would they do it at so many different heights if they were trying to break the firmament? You know, they were just literally trying to see what happens when you put nukes up there and explode them, which was stupid. But you know, there's still problems from that today. Getting back into Earth is really hard because there's an atmosphere that you're coming into, which, you know, causes a lot of pressure and heat. So yeah, that is hard. And you know, I mean, could you describe the atmosphere as a firmament? Maybe. I think
that's what generally is considered the firmament among people who believe in one, would be just the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit tricky because it used to be much thicker according to the Bible, right?
Yeah.
If you believe traditionally in what the Bible says, the Great Flood was essentially aided in, coming about because the firmament was destroyed. It, in part, was destroyed and fell to earth, and that was allegedly also the first rain that occurred and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So can any of that be necessarily proven? Not really. It's kind of more of a belief set, I think.
Yeah. But a lot of people, flat earthers, will say that the Van Allen belts are the firmament. But then that would have to be agreeing that the Earth's a globe and space is real because there's a donut around Earth. But there's no issue getting through the Van Allen belts. You just go through the weaker parts and do it quite fast. I mean, the astronauts that went through the Van Allen belts got less radiation than the MRI, So, okay, so yeah, then he starts talking about the stars, and straight away he's an idiot because he calls Orion a star when that's a constellation.
Constellation.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you pick that up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seemed to have a fundamental misunderstanding of stars. I think at one point, I don't remember if it was in my interview or an interview of his that I watched, but I think he tried to call them all angels.
Oh yeah, he said he showed you a star looking through the Nikon P900, and it's all flashy and glowy, and he's like, I think that's angelic. Well, no, that's just an out of focus star using something that shouldn't be used to look at stars. I mean,
right.
Any amateur can look at a star through a telescope, and it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
flat earthers think for some reason the P900 or the P1000 is some kind of magic globe-destroying device that can make stars glow in a weird way, except if you just focus the camera, they don't even look like that, It's crazy.
Yeah.
You literally just go on YouTube and type in P900 stars in focus, and there's people in my community that have debunked that.
Yeah, and people of a spiritual nature, and I myself am one, so I'm not going to try to shit talk anybody like that, but they've been looking up at the stars and trying to explain them for the entire scope of mankind. And there's several people on YouTube who will say that even the northern lights are God's tabernacle and stuff like that in the sky and all this kind of crazy stuff. And in the end, people will always be looking up at the lights in the sky, and they will be trying to explain them in diabolical ways. So
yeah.
Flat Earth Dave is just...
See, for me, that's what I kind of think religion and a belief in God is. It was a way to explain the things we didn't understand.
Right.
Which makes sense to me, right? Back in the day, we didn't know what stars was. We didn't know, when you see Jupiter and Mars, we didn't know what they were. So, it's God put them in the firmament. It's an easy explanation that fits in with the belief. And I get it. There's a fundamental
difference between spirituality and religion. Religion is a control mechanism that is designed to keep... Yeah. But when it comes to, you could... I don't know what I believe when it comes to ghosts, but people who believe in ghosts are not always, for instance, religious people.
No,
why is my grandma in the room with me? And my grandma keeps knocking my mug off the table and all this kind of stuff. But I just want to make sure that the people who are listening do know that I believe that there's just a distinct difference between believing in something that can't be explained and applying a spiritual perspective to that versus religion, like Catholicism or Islam or something.
Personally, I think religion's one of the biggest poisons that the earth has ever made.
I've been working for the past couple days on a write-up on that, how religion is probably single-handedly the thing that has destroyed mankind more than anything else that we've ever invented.
Yeah. If you want to have a belief, that's cool. I've got no problem with it. Everyone's got their own reasons for having beliefs, right? But it's when you turn it into a control mechanism and kill them because they don't believe the same as me. It's like, it's one of the stupidest things. But then people go along with it. It's control
through shame and fear.
Yeah.
Because how greater can you, how much more power can you have over a man than if you control his God in whom his faith relies on?
Yeah, exactly.
You control a man's God, you control the man. It's that simple.
Okay, so he tells you that Jupiter is as bright as the sun, which is one of the dumbest things that I've heard him ever say, because Jupiter is 3.3 billion times less bright than the sun. And I don't even know where he was really going with that. He's trying to talk about the inverse square law and how, well, if all these stars and everything are so far away, we shouldn't be able to see them. But the inverse square law doesn't say that light reduces to zero. It says it reduces in intensity, but it's inverse squared, so it can never be zero. So even if you can't see the physical thing, like you can't see a star, you can't see the Starlink satellites, you can see the light coming from them. Like, we see stars because they've emitted light. We can't make out the shape of the star with our eyes, but we can see the light coming from them because all our eyes need is 1 or 2 photons. I think 2 to 3 photons our eyes can register, right? So as long as the light has traveled and entered your eye, your brain's going to perceive that there's light there. Like, if someone's standing a couple of miles away and flashing a torch, you won't be able to make out the torch, but you'll see the light from the torch. And he started talking to you about the Starlink satellites, right? And like, oh, well, how can we see them? They're so small. No, we don't see the satellites. We see the light reflecting off of their solar panels, which is now dimmer than it used to be because Elon Musk was pressured by stargazing groups into changing the angle of the solar panels so they weren't so bright, because most of solar photography is getting ruined by Starlink.
I honestly think that the reason that he cut the interview short, because it did feel like he kind of rushed to a close near the end.
Yeah.
And I think that he did that because I started scaring him with the satellite questions. Because when I started getting into satellites, he really didn't have any explanation whatsoever. And I tried to play along and make jokes about, the Chinese just launched a wooden satellite and all that kind of stuff to try to make him feel a little more comfortable.
He said, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I tried to be a little humorous so that he would maybe get more comfortable. But when I started mentioning, well, Starlink, how do you explain when I go out into the desert and I'm still able to have Wi-Fi hundreds of miles away from civilization and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And then he tried to explain it, I think, by saying airplanes. There must be a high altitude airplane in your midst or something.
Yeah.
I was just like,
but then when he was talking about being on a plane and it had come up, oh, you're using satellite. And he's like, oh, that's just propaganda. And he tried saying that, well, the plane's sending a signal up to the satellite and down to the towers. That's so stupid. Like, well, how do you explain when you're at sea? Like, I flew to America like twice over the past 18 months to do debates, right? And I could use the internet when I'm over the middle of the ocean. Where's the towers?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason planes have their satellite receivers on the top. Because
right.
they're using...
Delta just launched a promotionary campaign because now they have Starlink connected to their planes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's ignorance. See, I say ignorance, but I think he knows damn well that everything he says is wrong. And it's just a script that he's got to sell his app. This is why I think it's so important to follow him around on these podcasts and explain the lies that he's been told so that audiences that he's tried to manipulate understand what a con man he is. And again, I know I've said this, but again, guys watching, if you've downloaded this app, I am begging you, delete it immediately and change all of your passwords. I could turn up at your house because we know where you live thanks to that app. All right, just get rid of it.
It's a textbook case of somebody who has created a dogma and now they must follow that dogma to their doom. Like in order for him to admit that he was wrong, he would lose literally everything that he has ever stood upon. He would have to totally reinvent a whole reason for being. I mean, everybody knows him for this. Unfortunately, he's made it his personality, and so to go back on it at this point is impossible.
Oh, yeah, he would lose so much. He would lose his income. He would lose his community. He would lose his reason. Mm-hmm. He always talks about how he gave up a 6-figure job to do Flat Earth. No one believes that, Dave.
Honestly, from a business perspective, it's incredibly intelligent what he's doing.
Yeah,
because
he's got his con down,
right? If he views this as merely a business for him, then honestly, he's playing all his cards perfectly right, and we're the ones who are who are actually continuing to promote him because he's laughing at our expense all the way to the bank.
That, like I said, that's why I like to try and debunk him wherever I can. I've done so many videos on him, and the videos can get a bit boring because he's got the same script everywhere he goes, But I feel it's extremely important to have to go places and debunk him, because the audiences that he tries to infest. And I think it's a disgusting way of being. He came here to your podcast because he knows your audience are open-minded, outside of the mainstream, which means, that's people that I can grift.
Right.
And I think that's disgusting. He'd never come on a podcast of a science person. He'd never go on Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'd never go on a podcast that talks about satellites and stuff, because he knows that they would just be like, "You're talking bullshit. Shut up."
Right. I think that his real danger here is the fact that as people grow more and more discontent with the government or whatever the government is telling us, there are more and more people who are willing to believe anything. And so the danger of people like Flat Earth Dave, for instance, or anybody who really is pushing a radical agenda like that encourages the abnormal to be considered, the danger is that the people who are willing to eat that up and turn it into their religion are just going to increase over time as the governments collapse, which is just something that happens all the time. I mean, you have all of the ancient empires throughout history that display that they come and they go, and in the voids in between, people are grasping at straws for anything to believe, and that is where people like Flat Earth Dave pose a real danger. That's just my take. I found it much more interesting to try to psychoanalyze, instead of his scientific beliefs, his psychology, which is really quite interesting. Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing wrong with being open-minded, and you should never just believe what you're told, right? And
right.
And that is very important, because that's when things like religion happens. If you just believe what you're told religiously, I don't agree with that. You should always have questions. Even when your teachers tell you stuff, question it. Ask why, how. Not at Sunday school, because you get kicked out, obviously. But and that's audiences like yours are the people that have questioned a lot of things, right?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with questioning everything. But that's what Dave sees and in for, because he knows that, they might question the mainstream even more now and buy my app. And I find that disgusting,
Yeah.
It really grinds my gears so much. He started talking about the horizon, and there's just some blatant, easy to debunk lies there. He said, why does it ramp up to the horizon if it's supposed to be curving down everywhere? Well, that's because it would only curve down everywhere if you're in the sea with your eyes here. Otherwise, it's a curve up to the horizon and then down. And then he gave the easily debunked lie of the horizon appears to rise to eye level. No, it doesn't. Not even in the slightest. That's why pilots they can see the horizon dip in their artificial horizon. And it dips the amount predicted by the globe. My friend Mr. Sensible sent a weather balloon to space, showing where the horizon dipped in the curve of the Earth. It's such easily debunked lies that
being able to actually see the curvature of the Earth for yourself is actually one of the most humbling things. Like it just makes me, at least personally, it just makes me feel so incredibly small. I've seen the curvature of the Earth with my own eyes. It's kind of like you can visibly see it, and I wanted to ask him that question too, because you can even see it from the top of some buildings, and I wanted to see how he would explain that, and I unfortunately ran out of time.
He ran away. He likes to run away when he gets cornered. That's what he did when me and MC Toon turned on our cameras on the Conspiracast fake podcast, and he ran like a little bitch. And then here's the big one that he likes to do: Antarctica. What's your thoughts on Antarctica?
It's a landmass. It's like anything. I don't have any profound belief. It's mysterious and stuff, and I wonder why it's so hard to get there. But I also am pretty traveled myself, and so I understand the costs of travel and whatnot. And so there's a thousand reasons for why it is not the safest place to go. But I don't. Maybe the Nazis went there and established a secret base. Maybe they did. That doesn't necessarily prove that aliens are there or anything like that, though.
Yeah.
It just proves that the Nazis were there, and so maybe there was something there that was discovered. We're not allowed to. I don't know. I have any number of ideas, but nothing that's like outlandish.
It's a landmass, and it is the most inhospitable desert on Earth. That's all, right? But it's one of the last untouched places on Earth. And he will lie and say the Antarctic Treaty says that you can't go there. But the Antarctic Treaty doesn't say that at all, right? As a British citizen, I could go to Antarctica. I could get a boat or get a plane, and I could go to Antarctica and explore anywhere I want, and no one's going to stop me. There's no magic military force that is going to, no armed penguins that are going to gun me down. No one's going to stop me. Now, when I get back to Britain, I'm going to be in trouble, because Britain has rules, and it says if you go there, you should get a permit so that they know who's going there. And, you pay insurance. So there's a problem, they can come and rescue you, and you don't ruin the landscape and stuff. There's rules. Yeah, you can ignore them and go there and no one's going to stop you. But if I then came back to Britain, I'm going to get fined and possibly a bit of jail time. Right. But there's people that go and explore Antarctica all the time. Like last year, a 21-year-old girl did a solo trek across Antarctica. No one stopped her, and the fact that he was offered this trip to Antarctica and he didn't go is the biggest proof that he is a massive lying grifter. What idiot, what absolute moronic twat would turn down a all expenses paid trip to Antarctica?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're talking like $50,000-$60,000 worth of travel expenses.
Yeah. And the people that got to go, I'm so jealous. Like I said, I was offered the trip and I could have gone, but my leg, and I've got two people in the chat right now that went. I've got Dave McKeegan and MC Toon. They both went to Antarctica and they saw the 24-hour sun, recorded it for 24 hours, live streamed it, and no one stopped them. There was no guns there, right. And you can do these trips and that are all, curated and everything. But you can also go to Antarctica and explore it. And literally no one is going to stop you. Are you going to get in trouble for flying a plane where you shouldn't? Yeah, but that's the same anywhere in the world. You have to put a flight plan anywhere. You can get a plane and go and fly, but then you're probably going to be told off a lot and arrested when you land because you didn't put in a flight plan and there's rules around flying a plane, And you can kind of discover that for yourself without going all the way to Antarctica. If you just trespass on somebody's property, you're probably going to get in trouble. Exactly, right? And there's rules like the scientific bases in Antarctica. If you just turn up at Antarctica without any notice, they're not actually allowed to help you. If you're like, oh, please rescue me and give me food and shelter, they're not supposed to, because there's rules. They're not going to stop you. They're going to let you go off into Antarctica and you're probably going to die because it's really cold. I said, it's the most inhospitable desert on the planet. And that's why it's hard to get to. But it's also the last untouched place, and there's so many rules around there. Like you can't leave rubbish there, which is why the flat earthers had to come back home. But you can't, if you're in Antarctica and you're outside, you can't pee. If you need a piss and you're outside, you can't go and pee because it's so cold that pee will just stay there forever, and it's going to damage the landscape. There's rules. The Antarctic Treaty set up rules about what you're supposed to do. But the Antarctic Treaty, nowhere in the Antarctic Treaty does it say you can't go to Antarctica. Individual countries have rules, right? You should get permits. But that's individual countries basically trying to help you. Are you sure you want to go to Antarctica? Well, you should do this, I think where the conspiracies really revolve around what happens when it comes to Antarctica essentially is that because it's so difficult to get there, there must be some reason that it's being kept secret. And like I said, I'm fully on board with entertaining the idea that maybe there was an underground base, maybe Hitler escaped, maybe all this kind of stuff. But there are people who believe that, for instance, Antarctica is a secret base for fallen angels and that they all live under the ice down there and all that kind of stuff.
And I think that is one of the reasons that people like Flat Earth Dave aren't willing to go there, is because they use that, instead of actually fully believing it, they use it as a cop-out. And then they throw around words like demon and all this kind of stuff to basically explain how it's not even God's will for me to go to Antarctica.
Yeah.
And, you know,
obviously Dave couldn't
you have
go
to
with
be
the
able to
demons.
see through the BS.
Dave actually said he gave so many excuses about what they saw in Antarctica. They saw the 24-hour sun, but it was a plasma projection put in the sky by NASA. You know, but now he says
right.
he doesn't even think they saw the 24-hour sun. You know, and he tells these lies about people debunking it, showing that it was filmed in a studio and stuff, when, you know, you could just contact Dave McKeegan and say, can you show me the raw footage, please? And he will, you know, because he's got it sitting on his desk. I know right now, Dave McKeegan could reach out to his desk and pick up the SD card with the raw footage. You know, and you can't fake raw footage.
I'd like to see it, to be honest.
I mean, give Dave McKeegan an email, and I'm sure he'll send you a copy of it, you know?
Yeah, that'd be cool to put online.
Yeah, I mean, you can go on his channel or MC Toon's channel, where they've uploaded the whole 24-hour thing, even 360 camera that you can move around and stuff, you know.
I think that the more of that stuff that goes online,
he says, got it here right now.
There you go. I mean, yeah, I think that maybe it should be like a standard. Every conspiracy theorist uploader should have to put that up in their intro or something. Just be like, see, the Earth's not flat.
Yeah. Right. So from the video I watched, I didn't watch the last 10 minutes because I had to get you on. But that's
I think the last 10 minutes was him selling his apps. So.
Yeah, and that's the last thing I've got written here. App bad. And I know I've said this a couple of times already, but I will say it again because I think it is so important. If anyone watching this video on this channel has downloaded Dave Weiss's Flat Earth Sun Zodiac Clock app, delete it immediately. And then change every password that you've ever had. Right? It's not just bad, it is the most leaky app ever. There's just Google like the reports about it, that, you know, it's on websites that the white hat hackers put up and show, well, this is a bad app. You know, they've got like lists of things that you shouldn't use and stuff, and Dave Weiss's app has been reported on by these community of white hat hackers to show how bad it is. And it does boggle my mind how it's still on Google Play and Apple, because it goes against the rules of it. The passwords, once you get into the app, you can see everything. You can see the list of passwords. You can go, oh, that's this person, and that's their password, because it's just stored in plain text. And if you've used that password on anything else, like your banking app or anything, and in fact, here's the thing, flat earthers have been hacked because of that, right? Witsit Gets It, which was one person who went to Antarctica, he says that he's been hacked and everything and lost all his money. The app. You know, and there's other flat earthers that have reported that. Like, I phoned up one flat earther, Cece, and told him his password on the app. Like,
oh, man.
You know, dude, this is your address and this is your password. I know it because we've got back ends into the app, you know, because it's no app should leave you open, you know, anyone that has the slightest bit of technical knowledge to be able to go into it and just access all the data. It's, you know, like Dave McKeegan says, it would be safer to put your passwords in skywriting than it is to have it on Durf's app. You know, because he's a con man. And I've got no evidence of this, but I believe that he has done that on purpose because he wants to try and harvest your data somehow. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years Dave disappeared and 10,000 people had their bank accounts drained. Like, I would not be surprised in the slightest. I've got no proof of that. That's my opinion. But I genuinely think that's where this is going. Once he's got enough, he's going to go, oh, let me see what these people have got. And boom, he's gone and he's got all your money. You know, please delete the app immediately.
Crypto rug pull.
And that's another thing. He says that he's got 6 Bitcoin that he will give to anybody that can give Globe proof. The dude owes me 6 Bitcoin. I've given him that proof.
Well, Bitcoin's going down in value every day, so...
Well, give it to me now, quick, so I can sell it, you know?
Right.
I'll tell you, if I could go back in time to my younger self, I'd be like, buy fucking Bitcoin and then sell it in 2024.
You and me both, man. I was too busy buying stocks when I should have been buying crypto, and I dabbled in the crypto a little bit and then gave up on it.
Dude, if you want stocks right now, Rolls-Royce.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
God, yeah. Let me see the increase over the past year.
Right now, I'm heavy in the drone space.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. AI, I think, is a bubble you should avoid.
Yep.
281.
I've already made my money off the AI bubble. I'm not getting back into that. Right now, it's drones and space.
Okay, so in the last year, Rolls-Royce has gone up 44%. Since it started, it's gone up 1,356. When I bought it, it was at £5 a share. It's now at 14.52 a share. And they've just done a massive deal with nuclear engines and new little engines, and I think it's going to double over the next year and a half.
I'll take a look at it. I feel like I read somewhere that there was a chance that they were even going to get into space travel. So, which
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Don't buy SpaceX though. Poof, that's going down.
Yeah, that one was kind of like the AI bubble, where if you got in the initial push, good for you, but now it's just too risky.
Oh yeah, it's just like the dot-com bubble in the late 90s, right? But I think even worse.
Right, and I mean, Elon Musk is one of those people where he can say absolutely anything and tank his stock. It depends on what he's going to tweet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who changed Twitter to X? What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Oh my God.
Oh man, I can't even get on the app anymore. Like I at first I was like, okay, great, like freedom of speech, I'm all for that and everything. But then, you know, whenever I get on it, I feel like the brainwashing and the manipulation is just more than ever. And now it's just violent content, and it's really.
I just use it to argue with flat
disgusting
earthers, and Facebook. To be honest, I just use Facebook and X to argue with flat earthers.
I got on it to shit talk during the World Cup because that was just fun to do. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm done with this.
Right, so that is the video that Dave Weiss was on. That's all the things I went through and all the lies that I think he told you. Do you have any questions about anything that I've said?
No, this has been very fun, actually. I didn't really know what to expect because, like I said, I'd never been on a streamathon. No offense, I just hadn't heard of you before. The emails got to me, and I was in the middle of traveling and everything, so I really wasn't really sure what was going on. But this has been very enjoyable. I think my fan base is going to like it. I think the followers are going to dig this. It's going to be sort of a surprised interview that they didn't expect, and I think that's going to be awesome. I had a great time.
Well, I appreciate you getting back to my assistant, Emily, so quickly. They do a great job. I've actually got them captive in my base. Actually, what do you do with the captives in your basement? Because they keep asking me for food. Like, how often do you feed your captives?
I make mine fight to the death, and whenever there's 3, then those are the ones I feed. If there's more than 3, good luck.
I mean, they're always like, I'm thirsty, but, you know, there's a damp patch in the corner. It damps water, right? So, I mean, how are they thirsty?
Watch Survivor Man and learn how to filter your piss. That's my advice. Watch some Survivor shows. You're going to need it.
But no, seriously, thank you for having me on. Thank you for giving me the chance to go over the lies that Dave Weiss told you. And to be clear, they are all lies. I do not think Dave believes that the Earth is flat. If he does, then he's possibly the dumbest human being that exists.
There you go. Can you just because I want my fans to know and everybody, can you tell us where we can find you and what your account is and all this stuff?
All right, my name's Craig McNeil. You can find me on the internet with FTFE, which stands for Fight the Flat Earth, or Forgot to Flush Everyone. It's one of the two. I'm on X, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, even on Twitch. I don't really use Twitch, though. But yeah, just search FTFE and my disgusting face will pop up, and you'll be able to watch me. I go live 2 to 3 times a week. I try to release a new episode of my series Flirts with Idiots every Friday. And I'm constantly on Twitter, X and Facebook arguing with Flat Earthers, so come and join in the fun there. I've also got a Discord, which you feel free to ask any of my subscribers and you get the link to join my Discord, and we have a bit of fun in there as well. But no, thank you very much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. I've been FTFE.
Awesome.
Fight the flat, fight the flat, fight the flat, fight the flat.